I am here with Cheryl, and Cheryl, you started in the middle of September, and you were a type 2 diabetic taking 2,000 milligrams of metformin per day with a fasting glucose of between 170 and 225, sometimes bouncing up to about 350. And any of this, correct me if I'm wrong. We've been working on and off for about 4 months. Part of that is life happens. And that said, in the first month for you, now that said, most people, when they do what they need to do, are off their drugs within 8 to 12 weeks. You were off your meds in the first month. So what would you say just to that? We'll stop it there for a second. What would you say about that?
Well, I'm still doing good, but my problem is my pain. So the pain does to me.
And just so everybody to elaborate, so you have some severe back pain, and yes, any kind of stress, especially something like severe back pain, can definitely raise your blood sugar. Yes.
Not only your blood sugar, your blood pressure.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Because I did get it down to 98, 97, and it's like 102. And like I said, I think that's because of the stress and the pain that I'm in. Because right now I'm in pain every day.
Yeah.
So, but with all the techniques that you gave me to do,
yeah,
it's helped.
One thing we had talked about before is the difference between most of the diabetes culture, from both practitioner and from people with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. The culture tends to be all around manage your diabetes. So you kind of managed your diabetes for 8 years. So what would you say to people out there that probably don't even realize they're kind of stuck in the manage your diabetes? What would you say manage your diabetes compared to fix your diabetes?
Managing your diabetes is taking pills every day. Getting rid of your diabetes, you don't have to do them pills every day. You don't have to stick yourself every day, which I can't stand doing that.
Yeah.
But I do once a day. I take it in the morning most of the time to see what it is. And if I feel like it's going up, I will do it again sometime in between bedtime. But other than that, I'd rather not have to take them pills every day.
Yeah. You realized when we first talked about it that because a lot of times people think, oh, if I manage my numbers well with my meds and with something like low carb, the reality is that does not take away the risk, all the risks of diabetes. So you could be keeping your numbers in a healthy, quote unquote, healthy range with your meds, but the reality is you're still at risk for all of the complications of diabetes in that.
Yeah. Right.
So I want to make sure people understand that. All right. Let's see. What made you work with me?
Oh, Lord. Well, I worked with you once before.
Yeah.
And I didn't stay long because I couldn't do a lot of the stuff, and it didn't seem, and I know you go at your own pace, but my pace is a lot slower, especially when my back has to do with it.
Yeah, so for people that didn't know that or see that, yeah, so she had, I was doing some boot camp style, even though I say boot camp style, it was not the grueling boot style that most boot camp that most people think of, but it was a fitness class. Yeah. All right. And so towards working with me before, what would you say? I mean, you know me well, and you know other people that know me well, but for people that don't know me well, even with working with me, why did you decide to okay, yeah, it would make sense for me to work with Paul for my diabetes?
Well, I thought I'd take another shot at you because you were patient and you're good. You're a good person and you care about the people that you help. You don't just tell them do this, and then if they don't, you actually jump on our asses when we're
in a good way. Yeah. So to hold you accountable, yes, that balance of I like the word that's always used in a lot of martial arts dojos that I kind of grew up in. Grew up in as a young adult. Us, which means patience and push. So it's
Yeah.
one word that means both patience and push. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Good. So kind of realize like, and this is kind of, so in trying to manage your diabetes, you really didn't get anywhere for 8 years. Actually, you did get somewhere. You went from 500 to 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 in
right.
where you got in 8 years of managing your diabetes, with numbers still bouncing to very high and unhealthy. And then we're still working on fine tuning stuff, but basically within a month of fix your diabetes, you were off your meds and bouncing around between what I would call pre-diabetic and healthy. Yeah,
Right.
awesome.
Right. But you
Um,
also got to watch what you eat too. So it's not, the supplements that you give us to take
yeah,
is one thing. It helps. But you also have to watch your intake of food.
yeah, absolutely.
And
So, yep.
that was kind of hard for me to start. It
Yeah, and
still is.
yeah, I want that's one thing I definitely want to cover. So, addressing exactly like how hard it is compared to how hard you thought it was, and hold that thought for a second, or think about that. But also for everybody too, we're for people that don't know, we're definitely not talking about low carb. As well as I want to be clear, like it doesn't have to be perfect. Sure, could you aim to be perfect with your food, whatever that really means? But you can fix your diabetes without being perfect. So, what would you say to people that think, like, okay, even if this is possible, I can't do it because I don't want to just eat twigs and berries, or it's like it's way too impossible, way too difficult. So, what would you say to those people?
That's not what it's all about. You can still eat what you want to eat, but you got to do it in moderation. And you just have to watch the intake on your proteins and your carbs and
Yeah,
all of the other stuff. I mean, you can do it. I did it. Believe me, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
yeah,
And I
and
like my fruits, and I always have liked my fruit.
yeah,
And they tell you can't do it with the fruit because you're diabetic, but I eat the heck out of it. I mean, I eat fruit every day,
yeah.
more than I should, I think.
No, as much as that might still kind of be ingrained, absolutely not. Like, no, you're doing awesome with that. Like, the reality is, now, I've said this in other places, but it's worth repeating. A lot of times people are like, I can't eat fruit. I can't like eat starchy veggies. Like, no way. That spikes my glucose. And I think it's important to understand in context. So, kind of elaborating on what you said earlier, when you get the right nutrition, when you get the right balances of macros, starchy veggies and fruits not only do not spike your glucose anymore, they're actually good for you. So
Right.
really, I mean, that's a point that I can't stress enough because so many people just think I can't have carbs, I can't have fruit, I can't have starchy vegetables, and that's like that is making your if you're doing that, that's making your metabolism worse in the long run. And so, yeah, you need to figure out how to balance your nutrition, balance your macros specifically, and get the right nutrition for you and you as a diabetic to be able to have those healthy starchy veggies, healthy fruits. Yeah, and yes, you can when done right, can and should have lots of them. All right, awesome. Yeah, so if you are listening to this and you want to get off your meds, definitely put off meds in the comments. If you want to fix your diabetes, put fix in your diabetes. If you want to work with me, put Paul in the comments and I will get back to you. All right, my next note here is couch potato. I'm not necessarily calling you a couch potato, but that's we talked about this before, and I think it's important. Yes, exercise done right, physical activity is important, especially for diabetes. But also realizing a lot of people think I can't do this because I can't be that active. I don't have time to be that active, and so go ahead. What would you do them?
Well, if you want to get rid of your meds, you're going to have to do something. You
Yeah,
have to get out there and at least walk once or twice a day for 15 minutes. Walk around the block if you got to. After you eat dinner is a good time when it's not so hot out there. And in the morning, well, I run around a lot on my days at work, so sometimes I think I don't have to do that. I do enough of it on my days that I go to work.
Yeah, and sometimes your work is active enough. And so, even though you said that and you've start working that into your life, I want to remind you and everybody else that your first at least couple of months, you said you weren't doing anything, like other than work. I mean, you said like other than work, you were coming home exhausted, you're sitting on the couch. So yes, you've worked out into your life and good, but the reality is like that's you can fix your diabetes and get off meds even if you're barely active. Now, again, I encourage it, but to say like that is not something that should stop anybody. Yeah. So if you're a couch potato and you want to be honest about it, put couch potato in the comments, and we can work on that. All right, and we already addressed that definitely fixing your diabetes is definitely including your carbs and figuring out how to include your carbs. And you mentioned that it was difficult to change your food at first, which I mean, if anybody knows me, I've definitely had my struggles with food, and I feel really good where I am now. But like, again, a lot of times people are like, "Oh, you're a trainer. You're like everything's wonderful." No, I've had to work really hard developing my routines and my habits and my mindset to for me, that was getting away from things like Mountain Dew and Burger King and Wendy's and all that stuff. So that said, I understand the struggles. What would you say to people, like, to best you can put into perspective of like, yes, it's difficult, but is it as difficult as you thought it was, or most people think it is?
No, it's not really as difficult as I thought it was going to be. You just got to learn to try to substitute things. Like when we go to dinner, he wants to have a burger and wants to go to a burger. You know, we go to the sports bar. I have the grilled fish and the broccoli, which is better for me than that burger on the bun and all that grease. So,
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just got to learn how to substitute the stuff and you can still have a burger, but don't have it on the bun, you know? And then I have salad with my fish.
Why is it important for type 2 diabetics out there to hear your story?
So they can get off the meds, so they can do something with themselves, and so they don't go to be a full-blown diabetic.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd end up dying if I had to, because I couldn't take that needle. I couldn't put that needle in me. There's no way.
Of all the people I've worked with and or even talked to about diabetes, the first time somebody the other day actually said, and I was shocked, like, I know the human nature of it, but it still seems weird. The first person ever told me, like, why do you want to stop being diabetic? Oh, because I don't want to have amputations and kidney failure and blindness and like all the stuff that diabetes regularly leads to. Yet, almost, I'm going to use this one on, I wasn't thinking of it to cross my mind, but I'm just like smoking, like the idea of all the things that smoking, like knowing how bad smoking is for you and what it does very little to change most people's behavior. Knowing that 100,000 people a year, diabetics a year, are having amputations, and that all sorts of them are leading to kidney failure and blindness or eye problems, like sadly does not deter or change most people's behaviors. So, and I'm still saying it, but so I hope whatever it is, whatever your motivation is, whether it's that or something, to really get healthy. Yeah.
I like it. My way is that before all that other stuff happens to you, you got to start them shots. When you start them shots, it's like you're at a no return place. There's no return. And then all that other stuff is going to fall in place. Yeah. I don't want that.
Yeah, to go from metformin or anything like it typically means more and more metformin, which then typically means insulin, and that typically means more and more insulin. And so, yes, right. It is it is a Band-Aid that makes things worse and worse and worse. Yeah. So
Right.
to
And then people think because they're on the metformin or they're on the insulin, like I know a girl that I used to work with, she had to take needles every day, two or three times a day.
yeah.
But she would go and buy all kinds of junk food
Yeah.
and go home and eat it. And because she's taking the meds, she thinks it's okay to take it because the meds are taking care of what she needs to be taken care of, which I don't believe is right.
Yeah. And then there's similar ones. There's definitely that. And then there's people that are taking their meds and then eating the food knowing it's not right, but they're still doing it anyway. And then there's people that are kind of half-assing it. And then there's people that are like, oh, I'm going to do low carb and take my meds and keep my numbers in range. And honestly, all of those all still lead to more and more metabolic dysfunction and downhill. Yeah.
Right.
So, all right. So turn that train around. Yeah, I kind of said that in one of my videos, like not just a fork in the road where, no, like literally take a U-turn, never mind a fork in the road. I'm going to pre-frame this the same as I do anytime when I talk about doctors, nurses, anybody medical. Like they're amazing and they can be amazing at a lot of stuff. But also in any time, and I go to doctors and nurses and get consultations. That said, I think it's important to realize that they are in a very broken system, and to understand what they're trained in and what they are paid to do and what they're good at and what they're not good at. And the reality is that their track record for something like diabetes is rather poor. Now, not just my work. So, like, if you're like in your experience, what do doctors know about diabetes? What do medical people know about diabetes?
Give them a pill. That's the only thing I can think of because mine doesn't talk to me about the diabetes. He just tells me, oh, I got to give you this. And I go on and do, But now he hasn't even said anything about my numbers going down. And he had, I had blood tests in November. And it went from a 6.9 down to a 6.3.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even said a word about it to me.
Yeah, and part of that being in a broken system, one of the ways many of us have experienced, the doctor walks in the door and they're flipping your chart. And I would say it's a safe bet to assume, now again, there's exceptions, but for the most part, for most people, I think it's a safe exception to say them skimming through that for that minute is probably as much as they looked at your stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So again, they're in a system that's just like next and next and next. And they're in a system that is all about prescribing pills and procedures. It's not about education and healing. And that's sad, but that's also reality. Anything else you've discovered about your diabetes or anything else since working with me? Like what, especially thinking about it from somebody that doesn't know me or never done anything like this, like what have you discovered that people should know?
That you're honest and you're to the point and that you will help them as long as they want to help themselves.
Thank you for that last part. Yes, I definitely, people got to help themselves. And so if you want to help yourself and you want help from me, put help yourself in the comments. Any last words to anybody out there that's struggling with their type 2 diabetes?
Get on the program. It'll be good for you. I can make that promise. It's done me great. It's done wonders for me.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.